Allyssa Williams is from Kissimmee, Florida, and since her childhood knew she was meant to lead. Growing up, Allyssa recognized that African Americans bear a heavy burden from tobacco use, and she was at risk too. This fueled her passion for tobacco control, and she has dedicated her energy and leadership over the past 6 years to fighting to protect youth, especially youth of color, from tobacco. Allyssa has advocated at the local, state, and federal level, including collecting postcards and testifying in support of maintaining funding for Florida's successful tobacco prevention program. She has also advocated for her U.S. representative to support the Reversing the Youth Tobacco Epidemic Act, which was a legislation passed by the U.S. House of Representatives that would eliminate flavored tobacco products. During high school, Allyssa served as vice president of her youth group, and she played a leading role in creating and launching her group's campaign, Not a Lab Rat. This campaign was created to combat misinformation about the youth e-cigarette epidemic, which was awarded the 2019 World No Tobacco Day Award from the World Health Organization. She was also featured in a national public service announcement for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, highlighting the critical need to address menthol tobacco. Because of her efforts, she received the 2020 National Youth Advocate of the Year Award from the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Let's get a few more encouraging messages as we welcome Allyssa Williams to the screen to do a quick Q&A with myself and some of the other TAs. Hi, Allyssa.
Hi, everybody. So nice to be here.
To get started, I am going to ask Allyssa some questions. So if you guys want to utilize the Q&A box as we do go through some of the questions. So while we're asking some questions, you guys can type some in the chat, and we'll be looking at the Q&A box as well to read the questions you have for Allyssa as we ask. So the first question I have, Allyssa, is from your bio. We know you're from Florida, but tell us a little more about yourself. Where did you go to school? What did you want to get your degree in? And anything else you would like to share with us?
Of course. So, yeah, I am from Kissimmee, Florida. And for those of you that don't know where that is, I'm right next to Orlando, where Disney is and Universal and things like that. I went to Osceola High School, home of the Cowboys, but I currently am a freshman at Howard University in BC. And right now I am pursuing my degree in criminology. But, when you get to college, you start changing your mind on things. So if that stays, I don't know, but we'll see. And something that people really don't know about me is I'm actually an All-American cheerleader. So I do cheer on the side.
That's super interesting. So the next question we have is everyone's reason for getting involved in tobacco prevention is different. For some, it's a family member who smokes. For some, it's their friend who vapes. And another, it's because they want to make a difference. What was your reason for getting involved?
So I had a lot of reasons to get involved. The main one being is that I always grew up around tobacco. It was very normal in my family. And I come from a city where it is very normal. I mean, our school mascot is the Cowboys. That's what Cowboys do, is they smoke. So it was kind of one of those, I don't want this to be normalized anymore. And then when I got to middle school, that's when we started noticing the e-cigarettes coming out and all these new devices. And it was one of those, this is not okay. And, people are making it seem cool, but it's not. So that's why I got into tobacco control, because I wanted to be that voice that led my peers to a tobacco-free future.
That's really awesome, Allyssa. I have another question for you. So you were talking about your high school. So while you were in high school, what did you do with yourself and your youth group to educate and increase awareness about tobacco prevention at your school and within your community?
Of course. So we did a lot of small events. It was very hard in the start because not many of my peers were so used to someone going against tobacco, which was something we were all so used to being in our lives. So a lot of things that we did, we had to, start small, start off with small meetings, and then we would do things that really catered to like what our peers wanted to do. Like we did movie nights and then we would focus on like, tobacco and movies, like you guys talked about earlier. And eventually when we started getting more members, we could do bigger events, like holding like educations in the park, bigger parties and things like that, of course, before COVID, but yeah.
Wow, Alyssa, those are definitely some great ways that you've utilized it. I'll definitely be taking some of those back and using them in my youth group. Well, I do have another question for you though. So sometimes hosting projects for your school can be difficult. What advice or tips do you have for youth groups who are having a hard time getting approval from school administrators or teachers to host a project?
Definitely stay persistent. I was definitely that kid in high school that administrators hated because I never let anything go. If you ever, I always think of it like this, what's the worst thing somebody could tell you? No. And when they do, ask them why, and then figure out how you can fix that issue and just keep pushing. Majority of the time when someone tells you no, it's either because they themselves don't know how to, fix the issue at hand. So just be that kid that's like, no, you know what, I really want to do this. So, okay, I'll fix this and I'll come back later and then we'll discuss it again. So, just keep pushing and, stay confident, stay strong in what you want to do. And eventually it'll get done.
Well, that was like super helpful tips for me because I have a hard time with that. But as teens, there's so much pressure and temptation around us from friends and society. How are you able to resist peer pressure and social pressure to vape or use other tobacco products?
Right. So being completely transparent with you guys, it is okay to, sometimes be like, oh my gosh, I wonder what it would be like if I was, smoking, or what this vape would taste like. And a lot of times, when senior year came around, I was getting stressed and I would have those thoughts. A lot of things I would do is I would sit there and I'd be like, what am I thinking? I'm going to start a new hobby, and I would find something new to do. Or I would pick up something like right now I'm trying to pick up boxing. Don't know how that's going to work out, but we'll see. So just, stay true to yourself and just know, like, if it's really not, you don't want to do it and you know why you shouldn't do it. So find something else that you should do. And as for peers, just always try to be that supportive friend, because sometimes you don't always understand why someone is doing what they're doing. But I think the best way to change someone's mind or to be like their inspiration is to first try to understand where they're coming from and just try to support them on what they're doing.
That's really amazing that you came up with hobbies to do instead of getting involved with all that stuff. Like we were earlier with our refusal statements, changing the topic. Now we have a question from the Q&A box, which you guys can send in questions for Alyssa, from Joanna. Joanna, she said, how has your experience in advocating in a tobacco-free society affected you?
As a person, it has definitely made me a lot more, I would say, confident in who I am, not just as an advocate, but as a person. And it has definitely taught me a lot of things. When advocating, you're always going to be met with people who don't agree with you and who want to sit there and argue with you or just won't listen to you in general. And I think that really pushes you not only to be like the better advocate, but to be a better person, because again, it comes from a lot of understanding and a lot of being comfortable in what you're doing and who you are. So I think it definitely built my character and helped me to be a stronger person. If somebody had asked me to be a guest speaker on a summit like 4 years ago, definitely would have done it. Probably would have never answered the email because I had just been too shy. But I mean, here I am. And now I would say, sometimes I do get nervous, but I'm definitely more comfortable knowing that I'm doing something right and that I can help others do the same.
Alyssa, that's very inspiring that you've said that. I love hearing that, and how much you've changed over the years. Saying a few years ago you probably would have shrugged it off. I would have too as well. Just thinking of being in this position, I was like, wow, like are they joking? Are they kidding? I was shocked. I was happy. I was feeling so many things. So it's just nice to know that you're never really alone in the feelings that you feel. I do have another question for you. The highest goal of advocacy work is policy change. And I know you've worked at the local, state, and federal level of doing these things. So, what has been your experiences advocating for tobacco policy change?
I have so many to share, but honestly, it's difficult. It really is, but it kind of goes back to everything you guys were talking about 11-1, you're with the education. Just know what you're talking about. And I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid of the answer no, because you're going to hear it a lot. And sometimes it's not going to be in a nice way. And you just gotta push through. But one thing I can say is there's going to be certain people that you speak to, whether it is a decision maker or just their aide or assistant, that they're going to make you feel belittled or like the voice doesn't matter. And always remember this: there is nobody more important than a youth, because that is the one person that everyone really does want to listen to. And that's the one voice that's always going to matter. So even if someone is making you feel like, in this policy, like, oh, they're kids, they don't know what they're talking about. Yes, you do. And trust me, somebody out there is listening to you, even if it's not the person you're speaking to. Word travels fast in politics and all that stuff. So even if you're talking to someone that's turning you down, somebody else is noticing your efforts. And trust me, they'll reach out at some point and they'll be like, listen, I'm interested. Come to my office, let's talk about it and things like that. So it always goes back to being persistent and just trusting yourself and what you're doing.
That's super helpful, especially like when people are just scared to hear the words no. But what advice or tips do you have for youth who want to work on policy advocacy for tobacco prevention in their home city or state?
Of course, always try to build a relationship with those that are like local to you. It's very important to kind of know the background history of who you're going to be speaking to or who's going to be in that meeting with you, even if it's small things like what high school they went to, because a lot of times when you're speaking to policymakers, they always try to like take you off topic to like, get your attention somewhere else so they don't really have to pay attention. But just being comfortable with like free conversation and being very confident that you can bring a conversation back to where it needs to be is one thing. And definitely knowing what you're talking about, because people will try to throw the randomest stuff at you and you'll just be like, am I really, do I know what I'm talking about? And always know what is a credible source, because a lot of times these decision makers, they'll go based off of, some of them are sponsored by tobacco companies. So sometimes they'll go based off of like, a very biased research study. And you just got to know and be like, well, actually, this is what is and this is what is not. So there's that. And of course, don't be afraid of the answer no, because a no somewhere is a yes somewhere else. So
Well,
It
so I
is super
definitely,
important. Oh, sorry, Janaea. Go
oh,
ahead.
I definitely feel you with that, Alyssa. I do have another question though. What has been your favorite accomplishment so far? You've talked about doing all of this. You've been working for 6 years, so I'm sure you've racked up a lot of stories. Which one has been your favorite?
I've never been asked this question before, so honestly, I don't know. I'm very proud to be, the very first National Youth Advocate of the Year, and I think that that is my biggest self accomplishment goal, because it was something individually that I won. So I want to say that, but I don't think it is. I think my favorite accomplishment was when my youth group won the WHO award, because it made me feel like I had a family, like people who also believed in the same mission I did. And the sad part about my youth group is once you graduate high school, you can't be a part of this youth group, but it still knowing that like we had that award and I was a part of that team makes me feel like no matter what, like I know I'm leaving this group knowing that there's going to be more people coming in behind me fighting for the same thing. So I feel like that's probably my biggest accomplishment, was being a part of something so great.
I have another question for you, Alyssa. So, you talked a little bit about what you do when people say no to you, but sometimes it just happens again and again and again. Do you feel beaten down sometimes, or how do you stay positive and optimistic about being an advocate when that happens?
Definitely. Even though I'm not afraid to hear the answer no, it doesn't mean that I don't get upset when I hear it. And sometimes you just gotta know, like you just know in different incidences, like it's gonna get better, or someone else is gonna say yes. But definitely in the times when I can speak on this personally, I took a trip to DC to speak to somebody, and I'm like, oh, I took this trip here, like it's gonna go great. And the first 5 minutes I'm speaking to him, he tells me, no, I don't want to co-sign on this bill. And I was just kind of like, well, okay. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. Like, I respect that decision. And I just kept being persistent with him. And I was like, I really want you to reconsider. How about I just leave you some information? You can get back to me. I left him my email, my contact information. I was like, in fact, I'll be here until this time. If you want to give me a call after lunch, maybe we can, come back. It's just when you show people that you're really dedicated, even if they are going to stick with that no, they're going to remember your face and remember your cause and be like, you know what? Maybe if I don't want to support this one thing, there's something else in the future that's related to this that I can support. So just, be persistent and just take it as it is. It is what it is. It's kind of how I live it.
I like that saying a lot, Alyssa. I do have another question. What advice would you give to young adults who are working with adults?
So this is interesting because I just recently became an adult and my experiences probably aren't the same because most of my advocacy this past year has been virtually. But definitely, I think the lines between like being a youth talking to youth and being an adult talking to adults is so different because like you're kind of the adult at the table now, and I'm not used to that yet. But I think the advice is things don't really change. I mean, I still think I'm a youth, and I think that conversations will always stay the same. But when you are speaking with adults, just try to remember that, like, no matter what title, position, or anything that they have, whatever table you're sitting at, you belong there as well. And to just don't try too hard to make yourself relevant. You already are. Just stay true to yourself, true to what you believe, and just make sure that when you're relaying your information, you're not coming off too aggressive. You're not really trying to be judgmental, but more understanding, kind of things like that. It's a little bit harder for you to pick up on like things like that, but adults can be very passive aggressive and so just be mindful of like how you're coming off, the tone in your voice, even your posture matters. So
Let's see. I have another question here from Jasmine. She said, I know that transitioning from high school to college is a big change. How have your advocacy efforts changed since you've been in college? How have your focuses changed? And where do you see yourself going as an adult advocate?
that is a really good question. So again, my advocacy this year has been virtual, so it's been a little bit different than, somebody else might be experiencing. But the transition is kind of difficult. For one, a university campus is much larger, so reaching your peers can be a little bit harder. And in certain universities and colleges, you're kind of divided, like based on what school you're in. So, like, I'm in the College of Arts and Sciences, and that's based on my major. So sometimes it's hard to really reach people in different schools or the colleges that they're in. But I definitely think that the plus side to it is that people, I think when you get a little bit older, people get a little bit more motivated and start to care a lot more about current issues or things that are going on around them. So that's always a plus. Like there's always someone's always there to support you or someone new to join your cause. So
Well, that's really nice. But I have another question. So you learned a lot when you were younger on advocacy. How do you plan on taking those skills and the knowledge you've gained into your adulthood?
definitely. So a lot of those things have changed, especially with the e-cigarette epidemic, because we have more research out, more devices are out now. So I think most of the skills that I'm taking with me now that I'm at the college level is definitely just the communication skills. Um, we used to have this thing called mad skills when I was a youth advocate, and it's basically message, audience, and delivery, and things like those I'll definitely be taking with me. But now that I'm at the college level, the education part still really matters, especially because there's going to be a lot of people that you're going to run into that are going to be maybe more well educated on something than you are, or something like that. But just making sure that I do my research and always know who your audience is and make sure that who you're speaking to, like your information matches who they are. So I go to a HBCU, which is a historically Black college or university. So most of the research and studies that I give out or that I know like off the top of my mind pertain to my audience and my peers, which would be statistics on how tobacco is a health disparity issue and how it affects, Black youth and things like that. So it's really all, you'll use the same skills, but your information and your knowledge is going to change, and you are going to change your perspective. You're going to look at things a little bit differently, like I have, and you'll just be a little bit more understanding to certain issues and like the little subsections of the issues that you're talking about as well.
You know what, Alyssa? Thank you. You had so many fantastic answers for all of the questions, and we want to thank you all for putting your questions in the chat and in the Q&A box. So now, before we wrap up, Alyssa, do you have any last-minute advice for our advocates here on the summit today?
I definitely want to say that you guys are already heading in the right direction. Again, 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't have even done a webinar. Even just watching one, I would have been like, no, that's just too much for me. But you guys are definitely taking a step in the right direction. You guys are already becoming great advocates just by being here, engaging and learning. And I'm very proud of you guys because I know that there's going to be one day where, I'm not going to be the one speaking on this issue or I'm not going to be the guest speaker, but you guys are. So I can't wait to see the amazing things that you guys do. You guys are doing so great already.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. We really enjoyed having you here. We hope we can see you back again. So thank you everybody for again putting your questions in the chat and asking Alyssa. So if we can go ahead and say a nice warm welcome. Thank you to Alyssa in the chat. Thank you for being here, Alyssa. And we hope you have a great rest of your day today. Thank you, Alyssa. And now
Bye,
we're
everybody.
gonna say so everybody can say bye to Alyssa.